Okay, so to wrap up all our functional groups, we had some old diploma questions, just to kind of give you an idea of what some of these questions look like, that you're going to see maybe on some unit tests once we actually figure out what those are going to look like and how we're going to work those. So here's a sample question. So butanoic acid can be described as an blank compound, so aromatic or aliphatic. So when we've talked about this before, we've said that we decide if something is aromatic if it has benzene. So butanoic acid doesn't have benzene, right? So it is not aromatic. And the functional group in butanoic acid is, so here's our butanoic acid over here, it's a COOH. Is that a carboxyl or an ester? Well, that is a carboxyl. Okay, so still going with that, right? It's one of those linked questions. So listed in order from the acid that has the lowest boiling point to the acid that has the highest boiling point. The 4 organic acids above are numbered. So we're going from lowest to highest. Anytime you see a question like this, sometimes you guys get all caught up in like the check mark and you're like, oh, the check mark, I have to worry about that. You really don't. You really just, they all belong to the same homologous series because they're all carboxylic acids. So we're just going to put them in order from the least number of carbons to the most because we're going lowest boiling point to highest. So we're going to have number 2 first because it only had 1 carbon, and then number 1, and then 3, and finally 4. Okay, so our next one. So they often ask you to just recognize functional groups, right? So they're going to give you pictures and they're going to ask you which one has a functional group, or sometimes what they'll do is they'll give you a list of functional groups and ask you to say which ones are found in the compounds that they've given you, okay? So in this case, it says an ester functional group is found in. So we need to think about what makes something an ester. Well, something is an ester if it has a C double bond O to another C, right? So this has a C double bond O, but there's no other O attached to it going somewhere. So number 1 is out. We look at number 2. Okay, here's our C double bond O, and there's an O going to another one. So that one has what we're looking for. Go over here to number 3. This one has a C double bond O over here, but this is not an ester. And the reason it's not an ester is it has this H over here. So this is a carboxyl group. But right over here, we do have that C double bond O to that C. So that counts. When we go over to number 4, there's no C double bond O down here. There is one up here, but there's no additional O. So that one is out. So 2 and 3 only. Okay, a student drew the structural diagram shown below. So we have this compound here. Now, it says compounds that contain 8 carbons. So we have 7 different compounds. So the compounds above that are isomers of the structural diagram that the student drew are numbered. So I want to think about what's an isomer, right? We've talked about an isomer before. We said an isomer has the same number of C's and H's, but it has a different name and a different formula. So what you're going to find is actually pretty helpful in a question like this is think about your general formulas, right? Because knowing my general formula is going to help me eliminate some things really quickly and keep other things into the mix, right? So remember we talked about alkanes having the general formula CnH2n plus 2. Alkenes and cyclics, we said were both CnH2n, and alkynes, we said were CnH2n minus 2. So why that's going to be helpful? Well, when we look at this picture here, we see that it's cyclic. So we know that this has to have the general formula of CnH2n. So why this is going to be helpful? It's going to help me get rid of some things right away off the bat. So number 1, look at this. This is an alkane. An alkane doesn't have a CnH2n general formula. It's CnH2n plus 2. So that is a no-go. Okay, we have oct3ene. It's an alkene. It's going to have the same general formula, so it's a potential. Let's not eliminate it yet, okay? Number 3, a 2,3-dimethyl hex2ene. Again, it's an ene, so it's going to have the same general formula, so let's not eliminate that yet either. Okay, I know some of you are probably like, well, I want to draw it right away and I want to count it out. You can definitely do that, but sometimes you find just by process of elimination, you don't even have to, you can eliminate everything, and it just saves you a lot of time on the drawing. So number 4 is 3,3-dimethyl hexane. So it's not cyclic, and it's an alkane, so it's going to have a different general formula, right? It's going to be CnH2n plus 2. So we know that that one's out. We look at number 5. It's cyclic, it doesn't have any double or triple bonds, so that means it would have the same general formula. So we're going to leave that one as well. Okay, look at number 6. It's 2,3-dimethyl-1-propyl cyclopropane. So it's cyclic and it's an ene. It could also work. So we go to number 7. Right away I look at 7. There's no way 7 is going to work. Why I say there's no way 7 is going to work? It's benzene, right? I might have the right number of C's, but I'm not even going to be remotely close on the number of H's, right? I've got 3 plus 3, so I've got 6 from here. Remember, there's only one other H in each of these spots, right? So 7, 8, 9, 10. That's not even going to be remotely close to this. So 7 is out. So I'm left with 2, 3, 5, and 6, right? So this is why I say with a lot of these isomer questions, just by going general formula, you usually can kind of eliminate down to what you're left with. And if you can't, like you were left with 5, then you start drawing and then you start counting. Biggest issue tends to be with these ones is when you guys start like drawing and counting right off the bat. We tend to make silly mistakes and like we miss an H or we count something that isn't actually there because again, we've talked about this with multiple choice and numerics. We're all guilty of being a little bit lazy sometimes and not drawing full things. And when we draw something like this, it's sometimes hard to remember where we have H's and where we don't. And sometimes we miss things, or sometimes we count something, we forget we've already counted it, and then we count it again, okay? So these were just some examples of what some of those questions look like. You're going to find organic is pretty limited with what you're going to find, and the reason for that is up till about 10 years ago, organic was actually in Chem 20, so there really isn't too many questions for you to find out there relating to this, which is also why you find, like, as we work through these lessons and as you look through your note packages for organic, there was a way less sample diploma questions than we normally have, and that's just because that same number of questions just isn't out there, okay? So, before you move to the second part of organic, so outcome number 2, which is doing all your reactions, you do really want to make sure that you're feeling pretty confident with all your functional groups and naming and drawing. And the reason for that, and you'll see this as soon as you start to watch that first video on types of reactions, is we're going to give you names of stuff and you have to draw it and you have to be able to figure out the type of reaction from that. And if you can't draw it from the name, then you're just going to get so confused that it's really not going to help you. So that first step is going to be really important to make sure that you understand how to draw those. Once we have everything up and running, hopefully we'll figure out some platform to get some questions up and to just kind of do as much of a face-to-face as we can. And I was talking with Ms. Godfrey the other day and she was using the D2L classroom and she was saying that that worked pretty well. Unfortunately, right now I'm having issues with my password and our help desk is very far behind because I called yesterday at 11:30 in the morning and I am still waiting today at 3:40 in the afternoon for a call back to try to figure out what's going on. But hopefully I will be able to get in soon. All these videos will go up and we'll be able to start having some type of regular communication going on. Okay?